Okay, I call the meeting back to order. Do you
Trust-
need a roll
Yep.
call?
Trustee Benetti?
Here.
Trustee Boatner?
Here.
Trustee Burson?
Here.
Trustee Hassenberger?
Here.
Trustee Millet?
Present.
Trustee Muir?
Here.
President Wodnicki?
Present. Okay, we will be on number 6, action items.
Or do you want to finish the last discussion that we didn't do?
The which one?
We didn't do one of the discussion.
Uh,
7A.
7A, oh, because we were waiting for Mike, that's right.
I mean, there's no order.
I don't,
I'm just saying, you don't want to forget that.
yeah. Should we hold that on to the next meeting, you think? And
I think it's, that's the one that,
it's already 10:30, I don't know.
that's the one that'll set hopefully a better tone and a way to agree to stuff.
Well, let's take a vote. Do you guys
Which
want
thing are we on?
7, the,
7A, Village Board Agenda Setting
Oh,
and
yeah,
Setting
okay.
Time Limits. Do we want to cover that today? Or do you want to just move on to action items?
it's important to what Therese brought up the last meeting about the 7-day rule. Your internal rules, and you kind of want to operate.
We'll go one by one. Do you want to, 7A, do you want to do 7A?
I would kick
Kim?
it. I'm gonna
Nick?
kick.
Frank?
I do.
You do?
Yeah, I would.
You do? Kim? Okay.
Sure.
I do.
Okay, all right. Discussion items, 7A, Village Board Agenda Setting and Setting Time Limits and Number of Time Speaking.
On the
Right.
first one, on setting that issue that Therese rightly brought up, that your rule currently says 7 days. Well, the draft agenda, like this week, got out 7 days. But the back and forth to add things by
Oh,
the board members ended about Friday at noon. And I think that we need to change our internal rules that you govern yourselves by, to Teresa's point, to a meeting ago. It's from 7 days to, say, Friday at noon, there can be no more changes, but you'd have to further say that any 2 trustees can add something to the agenda and make it an action item or a discussion as your rule, because currently, I think Therese read off correctly that you have a existing rule of 7 days. 7 business days. So that is before Barbara, Tracy, and I ever put out a draft agenda. So you'd never be able to add something to the agenda unless we make this change, is what I think Therese was arguing. If you're gonna do that, you gotta change the rule. Is that a fair, Therese?
Yeah, I think that was part of the issue, and then the other issue is just generally us maybe getting a better handle on when things actually make it on as an action item, and talking about some things that we might be able to do to get some discussion out in advance, so that when things go on action, we're not kind of being bombarded with new contracts or new whatever. So, yeah, my concerns were kind of both, so that we have a little bit more consistency with what goes on our agenda. And it's more kind of where we all kind of know what's happening and we're prepared and we've had a chance to look at this stuff.
Okay, Janet, go ahead.
I think that Mark kind of hit on an important point here that we've all been struggling with, which is we just don't get the agenda soon enough for this provision that exists today, this 7-day provision to work. You know, so in order for that to work, we'd have to get the meeting for the next agenda for the next meeting tomorrow. I mean, it's, you know, it really doesn't work. So I think the expectation should be that that we're going to get the meeting on the Tuesday before. I think that it should say that in our code, that's the expectation. Is it going to get missed sometimes? Probably, maybe. Is there a consequence? I don't know. But I think that should be the in writing set expectation, that we're going to have that draft agenda a week ahead. And again, as Administrator Rooney mentioned, changes happen. Not maybe because of us, maybe because of other things going on. You know, time continues marching on during that week before the meeting. So if the village needs to update the agenda, that's okay. And those updates can be adding things, those can be changing things. Sometimes those apparently are removing things. And so the option of the trustees to either put things on the agenda that they hoped would be there and aren't, or to restore things to the agenda that have been
Okay, and I would
removed
agree
somehow,
with- okay.
seems to me like it should be, we should have 48 hours from the final agenda that we get, whenever that is, right? And so if the goal is to get it the Tuesday before, that's great. If we get it the Tuesday before and that really is the final agenda, then we'd have until Thursday. But if, because things happen, the actual final agenda doesn't happen until Thursday, well, then that would give us potentially until Saturday, right? And the OMA, window for this is Sunday. So, and to the extent that nobody, in the village is prepared to deal with this on Saturday, to me, that's kind of strong incentive to make sure that we get everything done by maybe Wednesday, so that gives us 48 hours until Friday to get our stuff in. So I think we need the 2 days, and I think that the agenda needs to come out early enough for us to get the 2 days, to get our perspective changes in.
So we'd have to change the 7 business day to what?
Well, I think that the two issues, while they are separate, the two time periods, while they are separate, they probably should be married in some fashion. If the board would like to have the draft agenda a week before the meeting, I think that, I don't think that's unrealistic. It's going to take some time probably for staff to work into that pattern, and it will happen, but you might want to consider having any items to the administrator, or as submitted to the village administrator either that day or the day before. You might want to have that be the limitation, because if the board is going to be presented with a draft agenda, it probably is fair for the rest of the board to also then see the items that at least 2 trustees are going to add, or at the very least give the village administrator and or the clerk who's putting together like the actual draft agenda to have that item to put it on the agenda.
Yeah, let's ask Tracy though, real quick, because she's the one that types the agendas and gets them out. Do you have a comment at all about it?
I have a lot of stuff on the agenda already for the February 3rd meeting, just based on housekeeping stuff that comes up, stuff that's going to carry from this one over the next one from the discussion items. I just move to action. So could it be done the day after a board meeting? Sure. Could it happen every time? Probably not, but it could be a good goal. I did it last time, so, it can be done, but to then, to the attorney's point it is going to change. And when changes happen, they just have to, be more accepted than they are now, if we're going to do something that early.
Okay,
I'm concerned about the order.
okay, let's see what Tracy has to say real quick.
So I think this week is an example of what makes me crazy and makes me not want to do this. Is on Thursday night at 8:30, we're talking about the agenda and the fact that there are no action items on it. And then there's a frantic move on Friday, starting at 7 in the morning until 7:30 at night or something, to add 3 items to the action items. And to me, that's just, I'm so done with that. I don't know why you can't figure out that you want those on action item earlier and not done. And of all of these, I don't even know if all of them were really ready to be as action. So what I would like to see, because then we all end up spending our weekends, I still have family at home. I mean, I do it, and I spend the whole weekend working on this stuff. But what I'd like to see is some of this stuff, especially if we've got contracts to look at that are 700 pages long, and all these other things, that we could get stuff to us earlier, and then we can still allow items to be added on within the 48 hours. But at that point, you're not adding them to action. Or we have some deadline where it says you get your action items on by this date unless it's an emergency and it's somehow we agree to it as a board. So I don't think there's any reason why we can't start getting this stuff a little bit further in advance. I don't think any of us are doing as good of a job with any of this because of the volume of stuff that we have to look through and look at from Thursday night until, Monday, and some people work during the day, some of the other commitments during the days. So I think we could do a better job of this than throwing in 3 action items at the last minute on Friday.
Okay, let me just check this side. Anybody have a comment about this agenda item? No? Okay, Janet,
About the agenda item,
that we're talking about now, yeah.
or just when it comes out? Because I do have a comment about,
Either one.
okay,
Uh-huh.
so my comment is, I think we spend way too much time talking about stuff, and the back and forth is absolutely exhausting, quite honestly. So I think we should go around the board for comments on a particular issue, and then have one more time around for a rebuttal, and then the conversation should
Be
end.
done with it.
So there's way too much side conversation that eventually branches off into irrelevant issues, and
I like that.
it's just tiresome. And I think we need to create some structure over the amount of time you have to address an issue and how many times you can comment on it. That's my opinion on this. So-
The previous board had a committee of the whole before they had their regular meeting, and, yeah, and they were able to address a lot of things, discussion items that took a lot of time then away from the full meeting. Like, right now, it's like 10:30, so we've been here a long, long time.
Yeah, anything
So
we
that
can
is
do.
something we could consider there, too.
Yeah, I would, anything to shorten the commentary about
Okay.
various topics.
Yeah.
I think we're all gonna be better
I
off.
agree with you. Yeah, go ahead, Janet.
We've got 2 issues in one discussion item here. One is about the agenda, and the other one is about debate. And I had suggested that we limit debate, because I think we're all talking too much. But on the agenda issue, if we can just go back to that for a minute. Attorney Forte, mentioned that, I think a couple people actually have touched on this issue of when some of these items get on there. And the problem that we're having is that the reason that trustees are looking to be able to add things to the agenda is because we actually want to have the discussion, we want to have the action, we want to get something done, and we find ourselves blocked. And so when we know, or at least we believe, that there's a consensus on the board to get something done, but we're struggling to get it on the agenda somehow for some reason, that's when trustees exercise their option to add something. As for action, there's nothing in our code, there's no magic that says we have to have discussion before action, but we typically do, and we did with all of the items that were on for action tonight. All of them had been preceded by discussion, and there had been a consensus to move them forward. So I understand that sometimes people don't like the item that got moved forward to action, but it doesn't mean that you can veto it just because you don't like it. I think that we still need that 48-hour window from whenever the village calls it done with the agenda for the trustees to be able to say, wait a minute, I was expecting this item that we discussed last time, that we agreed to move forward to action, to be there, and it's not there. Why not? And at that point, the question of what the consensus was or wasn't the last meeting isn't even an issue. What's at issue is that 2 trustees agree that they think it should have been on there. So that's what that provision is all about, as far as I know. And as far as the debate issue is concerned, I agree with Trustee Benetti.
Okay, Teresa?
we need to change 7 days to?
So two issues. I think the 7-day thing doesn't work, right? I think we need, I mean, it's, for everyone else to throw in their 2 cents, but we need some amount of time after the village puts down their pen, right? So whether that's 48 hours or whether that's something different, we need some amount of time to react to that.
Go ahead, Teresa.
So I'm just going to make the point that there is an item on this action items that clearly should not be here, which is item C. And we'll talk more about that later, but that is an example of something that should not be on action, because I've spoken with Sam Galucci, and he is absolutely not anywhere near ready signing that agreement. So we shouldn't put that on when we don't even have the person who needs to sign the agreement be ready to sign the agreement, and we've got it as an action item. So that just made my point.
At the start of the meeting, the village president did say we're going to move that to the next meeting because it was under legal review by
Just saying
Mr. Galucci.
Just saying it's a really good example of things that end up on action. We just heard from Trustee Burson that there's, everything on action should be there, and I just gave you a good example of one that should not have been there.
Okay, Nick, go ahead.
So having the agendas out 7 days before a meeting that would be very helpful for myself, and I'm sure all the other board members. I was concerned that it was potentially an unrealistic burden to put on the clerk, but after hearing you talk, it sounds like that could be most of the time accommodated.
Don't make me be here on a Saturday and a Sunday and a
Sure,
holiday.
right. Yeah.
But you usually are.
All of that being said, then, if we had 2 days, so 48 hours after we received the agendas, to make any adjustments, to add items, 2 trustees can get together, so 7 days to receive the agenda before a meeting, and 2 days, 48 hours to make edits. Close the business Thursday, whatever that day. That seems like a reasonable timeline.
Right, so the way the village code reads now, it just indicates that any written submittal made by 2 trustees, so something that hasn't been discussed in a previous meeting and then is just moving to action, but something that's outside of what's been discussed, or maybe has been discussed, but there was no consensus reached here. 2 trustees, 7 business days prior to the next meeting, makes the request to the village administrator. That item gets put on the agenda. This is in 164C,
Agendas.
C1B. I'm sorry, C1A. The 48-hour provision is that if there's a question regarding the proposed agenda item that the 2 trustees have brought forth, the administrator has to contact those parties, the trustees, not less than 48 hours before the meeting to clarify or have any questions regarding that submittal. If they can't reach, if it's the trustees or the village president can't be reached, the items just gets put on the agenda the way that it's proposed by those 2 trustees. So there isn't a 48-hour review period in the code right now that says once an agenda comes out, and honestly, I don't know that you need to put in the code a specific indication of when the agenda should come out. I think that you could just have a consensus that that's something that you would like to have staff, the administrator and the clerk work on to get out.
And the president.
And the president, but, maybe have an indication in the code that says, once an agenda is presented, a draft agenda is presented to the board, have a defined period after that the board can make changes, as Trustee Burson said, but.
48 hours and 4 o'clock, or 4 Friday, whichever.
Right, yeah, I think that would be great, and I think that's something that I would include, and then I think that really can be separate from the 2 trustee rule of adding something to the agenda, and you'd have to look at the dates as to when that falls, but That would be my suggestion.
Go ahead, Mike. And then I'll go
Couple,
back to you, Frank.
couple of thoughts. We may be victims of modernity here in a way, because at one point, there were cops that would show up on my doorstep Thursday night with a paper agenda.
Oh,
And
yeah.
then the agenda was set, and then we would look at it, and you can scan it real quick, and if there was anything that was iffy, use that term for whatever, there was a day before the publish had to happen. So at a bare minimum, we should be able to get the draft agenda for what is known at the time. Again, emergencies can happen, I get that. What's known at the time that we could see on Thursday night. I mean, I don't think that's, because it. Yeah, it used to be a thing. I mean, it was, on occasion, it would come out on Friday because of stuff we were waiting to get put in there, et cetera, et cetera. So whether that's the full agenda with the stuff behind it, or I think what we're talking about right now is to make sure that things are moving, advancing the way we expect them to be, then I think we should at least be able to have, this is what we think the agenda is going to look like, or here's the draft agenda with the names of the items, and if we expected something from 7C last meeting is not showing up as 6A this meeting, then we can figure that out right away, and we can ask. And then the second step would be, at what point then do we want to put something on the agenda? My experience when this came up, what's the date on this one? 15, was there was concern that the agenda was being blocked and that the trustees wanted to ensure that it's the board's agenda, right? It's our agenda. And to make that a reality, the proposal that's now codified was that if two trustees wanted it, but that wasn't contemplated within that review period either, right? That's why the 7 days was talked about, is that if there's something we would know it. For example, you know, let's say Agenda 1, discussion item doesn't appear on next week's meeting, or next meeting, 2 weeks ago, then that's the alert for those trustees if they're concerned that, okay, we thought that was going to be on the agenda, we will make it be on the following agenda. So it wasn't trying to necessarily insert on that one day where you know, we're from getting the paper copy to where it had to be, you know, officially published, that we would be able to make that action. Because I don't know you can merge those two things in that same short time frame. You might be able to. I mean, but then maybe it's not a short time frame. Then you're talking about a preliminary agenda on a Tuesday or something like that, and then time for us to react on that. I believe the other way we can handle this, or it was alluded with what President Wojnicki said, is we used to have a formalized committee of the whole, a COW, and we would do that at 6:30, and then the meeting would start at 7 or 7:30, whatever it was back then. And there was action at a COW. There was clarity that, yes, this item should be on the next agenda for action. It was clear. So we could still do that with our Section 7 discussion items. We could have A, B, C, D, in this case, A, B, C, D, E. There are 5 yeses or nos on whether this, and that needs to be, Madam Clerk, that would be recorded as part of your taking, is that, you know, this was agreed for moval to next action agenda. And then we can keep track of it, because then if it doesn't show up, then we've got 2 or 3 people ask, why is it not there? We clearly said this was to be for action next time. And then if other things come up, we still have that ability. And yeah, maybe 7 days is a little bit, or maybe calling it 7 business days. I mean, in our world, we don't necessarily have business days. We're trustees 24/7. So that's my thought.
Frank, I just wanted, so you brought up a good point, just go around and have everybody speak. How much time do you, like 5 minutes, 10 minutes? No more than 10 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, maybe?
3. I would say no more than 5. I mean,
No more than
if
5.
you can't get your thoughts
So quick,
organized and out
yeah.
in 5 minutes, that's plenty of
Okay,
time. I mean, because
okay.
if you think about it, it's 5 minutes times 6,
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
you know,
That-
it's a
that's why
half
we're
hour
still
every
here at
topic.
10:30.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think 3 minutes,
3 minutes? Mm-hmm. We do have a timer. We could bring that back up.
And if somebody asks for more time, you'd reasonably give it.
Of course.
Sure,
Of
sure.
course, yeah.
you just don't want to get into a long, drawn-out debate,
Yeah.
so.
All right, are we done with the discussion item 7A? We could move to action items, so,
Well, I mean.
Well,
I think
what-
we
there's
have
a
to come
conclusion,
to
though.
Consensus. that-
yeah. He wants you to put your mic on.
I'm sorry, we have to, Tracy and I need to know, the consensus is we will get a draft out 7 days unless there's some reason to not. And that I don't think you really said what the drop dead change date was, 48 hours after that Tuesday, and if we didn't get it out till Wednesday, you'd have another day.
48 hours on Friday at 4 o'clock, I think, what that's Friday, right?
That would be Friday at noon, it'd be a better one, because it's, should be.
Yeah.
I think Friday at
Yeah.
7, right? I think people have been doing it up till 7 on Friday,
Oh, well, we
this
could
48
move it.
hours,
We could move it.
right?
But I thought
Until
it was
Sunday,
kind of
but-
a thing about noon on
No, I don't want her to work on
Friday,
any of
right?
these extra days.
10.
Can I,
The direction I'm thinking I'm hearing is that we'll get it out on Tuesday before close of business to the trustees, and that one person said Thursday at 4, another one said a 48-hour from when the draft agenda got there, but no later than noon on Friday. I just got to know what we think we agreed to. So are we agreeing to Tuesday by close of business, the draft is out, and that any two trustees can add up to noon on Friday? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, if we're going to do a consensus, I would agree with that last way that you phrased it. 48 hours after the agenda's out, no later than noon on Friday.
That covers every
We got,
contingency.
Tracy wants to add something.
I just want to clarify that, is this going to be before the actual agenda is posted online? Because once it is posted online, it's, then you run into where I'm sending all these links updated all the time, and so it will be before the online posting. So by Friday noon, so by 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, say, the agenda could be posted online, and that would be final?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
But any changes have to occur before noon, so you have time to do it. I do believe Tracy wants to go.
Trace, go ahead, then
Just-
we'll move on.
we
Yeah.
had, yeah, just real quick, we had talked about, briefly, I've talked to various trustees about the idea of the committee of the whole. I think we
Yeah.
should really consider that. One thing that I had heard is that maybe the last administration, maybe we didn't, I don't know exactly how it worked, but that there was a committee of the whole during, before your meeting, and then items discussed there would then go on to the next, like the agenda
Ah, okay.
in 2 weeks. So you've got the chance to have the discussions, and then you've got 2 weeks to have further discussions individually or, 2-on-2,
Oh,
to kind of
okay.
work things out before then you are actually voting on it. So you don't do it then and then vote later, then and
Yeah.
vote here.
And
And I
that
know
way
that-
it gives the staff or the lawyer time to prepare something in 2 weeks.
Right, I just have a couple questions on that what's been,
Can we let Kim go first
sure.
and then? Okay, go ahead, Kim.
So the
Okay.
progression there, going back several years, the committee of the whole happened like with Patsy and Bleckard. Under the one prior to this current administration, it was pretty much the way we're doing it now.
Oh,
Yeah, so, I mean, as far as, yeah, so, as long as we're actually having that discussion there, I don't see why we need to start at 6:30, because the stuff that we're talking at 6:30 is not gonna get onto the next agenda anyway. So we're already kind of doing this here, which is
get
kind of how the prior administration was doing it,
okay.
instead of that 6:30.
All right.
That's why we used to make the formal suspension of Robert's Rules of Order before we went into discussion items. That was to kind of indicate we're now in the cow.
Okay. Okay, are we ready? Kim,
Yeah,
go ahead.
actually, Trustee Millet's correct. I do remember sitting there listening to it. Oh, right.
All right. Are we ready to move on to action items?
Well,
Oh, Nick, go ahead.
The other part of this, the setting the time limits and the number of times speaking, I heard Frank, you mentioned the 2 times around in the 3 minutes. It was exactly what I was thinking. So, I mean, if we're going to move forward with those, I think 5 minutes, we get to that whole hour where we go around twice and we're at an hour for every item potentially. I mean, if we're trying to make this more efficient, I think 3 minutes is more than adequate.
That's true.
I mean,
And you only do 1 rebuttal or 2?
I had one,
1.
yeah.
One, and then at the discretion of,
Yeah, I think we
Either
should
the
have more
bo-
than
yeah.
one rebuttal.
I think
Yeah.
one is good as a guarantee, but then at the discretion, depending on what's being said or what the topic is.
Carmen, did you want to say something?
Microphone.
The 2 questions on the agenda distribution. You currently have in the code that the administrator, like I said, has 48 hours, at the very least, 48 hours before the meeting to clarify the submittal by the trustees. You don't have that time period anymore. I just want to make clear that would have to be removed. Okay. And then the additional items that are added by Friday at noon, are they, well, certainly discussion items because they would require no preparation, but if it's an action item, is the understanding that it's not something that is going to need further follow-up, either by legal or staff? Obviously, if it's been something that's been discussed already and it was missing from the agenda, that's obviously, that's an easy add, but, you know, we'll run into a difficulty if you have something added on a Friday at noon. Right, an ordinance needs to be prepared.
That's
Go
what,
on, Mike.
that's what's going on. We can do that. We can act on an item and instruct council to prepare ordinance and prepare for ratification. We can do that too if we need that. No, not necessarily on Tuesday. I mean, we could do that right now, if we need to. It's not something we generally do, because we generally want to like tear through the language of it, but there are times in the past where we've had to do that. We're like, okay, this is subject to,
You can put it
final
on as a
authority by
motion.
the president, final authority by we could do it that way if we want to.
You
We
can add to
shouldn't.
put it on as a motion,
but yeah.
and then, and ratify it with an ordinance later. That's fine.
All right, are we ready to move on to action items? I know Frank is.
I'm sorry, I had one more question,
You-
very quick.
Oh, no.
The speaking discussion, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, rebuttal, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
is that a board consensus? We're not making a change to the code, or do
3
you want to
minutes.
change to the code?
Mhm.
3 minutes, 2 minutes? We can do it either way, I just wanted to. Okay, we'll do it as a resolution, that's fine.
Okay, you all set?
So it was 3 minutes?
3 minutes, 2 minutes.
Mike?
3 minutes on the first time, and each person can get 1 rebuttal of 2 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, did you want to go again?
No, I just said Mike,
Oh,
so he raised his hand.
okay. All right, action items. A, motion to approve Resolution 26-03, authorizing execution of an agreement with Lauterbach and Amen to provide finance department support services to the village of Campton Hills. I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Frank. Second by Nick. Discussion. Go ahead, Therese.
Okay, so I'm going to say all this knowing that I'm just putting this on the record because it's going to all be probably dismissed. But I'm going to repeat my concerns about Lauterbach and Amen. I think under the circumstances with the serious financial control issues that we've had, I think that it would be prudent for us to bring in someone who had not handled any of our systems during that time period. So during the period when the reconciliations weren't being done and the audit reports weren't really reflecting any of that, but that's a pretty serious problem. And so it makes sense for us to get an independent someone in here, and I don't think Lauterbach is, it feels like they're like the only game in town, and there are others out there. I mean, I think we could reach out to some of the other districts and find out who they've used for this purpose. I think it's very irresponsible of us to have Lauterbach come in, given that there may be some concerns about the audit itself. And once again, I'm not saying there is a concern or there's anything wrong with the audit, but there certainly are, I think, enough issues being raised right now to make that be something we should be considering. So I think it's important to have an independent third party come in, someone that we have not used before. I'm going to bring up again, at some point, I think we are going to need a forensic audit of some of this stuff, just to make sure everything is on the up and up, and that it's looking good again. I think that this is the next part that you're not going to really like, but there is no place in the budget for this and for the amount of work we have to do. So we are going to need to do some sort of a budget amendment here. If you look at the current budget, we have two items that I think this could potentially fall under. One would be in the salaries, which is not broken out here, but I'm assuming that salary includes, I'm not exactly sure where Timothy's salary was on the budget, but we know from last year that it was about 16,000, so we would have about whatever this 5 months left of that left on the budget. And there's a line item here, accounting and audit services. I'm assuming that's probably for the actual audit, but there's 21,000 in there. We've got maybe some of that remaining, but this is expensive. This contract that we're looking at is an expensive contract. It's $7,000 a month for the services of, and if you look at some of the descriptions, which, kind of concern me, they're not doing a lot of this work. And I know we talked about this last time. I think there was the belief that they were coming in and in 10 to 12 hours doing everything, and they make it very clear here, bank reconciliations are reviewing, they're managing, they're analyzing, they're reviewing, they're supporting, they're assisting, they're backing up, they're assisting, but there's not, here, I finally get to one now, halfway down the page, that just actually says prepare. So there's a whole lot of just supervisory kind of things going on here at a very high cost. And so I think we need to consider that. And then my last comment is, we had a bit of an impromptu discussion with Russ. It involved Tracy, Bill, Kim, and myself. We happened to all just be at the village, and Bill was asking questions, and I happened to be sitting there reading meeting minutes, the closed session meeting minutes, so I just happened to be in the room. But the bottom line is, if you talk to Russ right now, I think what he would prefer is to kind of put a pause on everything just for, he asked for a month. He said, can we just pause everything for a month?
Yeah,
And he had talked about getting potentially, and I won't say any names, but there's an employee that we've talked about reaching out to kind of help out, someone who's familiar with the village, who might be willing to come and help out, who also knows Cassell. And so I think that the plan was to reach out to her and find out if there was any interest in helping us out in the short term. But he would like us to pause, and then really then, once he's had a chance to kind of get a breather, he wants to get trained in on Cassell. So we're trying to get him, someone needs to get him set up with some training. And then kind of sit down and assess, what are our needs, what do we need to do? Because we had Timothy working 30 hours a week and not getting the work done. And so what are we going to replace that with? I think we need a minute to kind of go through that and decide what's necessary, and maybe we even pare this contract down a little bit more and have the duties be even more limited, because I think a lot of these kind of reviewing kind of things are not really going to help us that much. And it's very expensive. $7,000 a month is a very expensive deal that we're
is,
agreeing
very
to
much
here.
so.
And we do not have the budget line item for it, so either way, it would have to be approved as a budget amendment.
So our next meeting is February 3rd. February 3rd. Maybe we should, wait a little bit and maybe interview more audit companies and, Yeah, I know I'm presenting, yeah, and, oh, I can speak. I'm sorry if it offends you, but I can speak. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, Russ, I was there Thursday, and he made a interesting point about, since things weren't reconciled, that we need to get to that point before we bring anybody else in.
That's right.
Because if they find something or something goes awry, then we get this finger pointing thing going on. But, so, that's my comment on that, but I do have a question on this contract. It is pretty expensive. By the time we get to 3 years, we're looking at almost $91,000 a year. But along the lines of that 3-year contract, I'm going to point back to something I mentioned a few meetings ago about violation of statutory limits, which was that 65 ILCS 5/8-1-7 about limits on contracts. This contract goes beyond into the next board's term. So it goes beyond May of 2028. It goes into December 31st, 2028. So, and the next board is going to be, I mean, that's almost a year beyond, year and a half.
Mike, do you have any? Okay. How about South Elgin? Do you have any
That's what he's
idea,
referring
like,
to.
who they use, or are
We use
there other
Lauterbach and Amen, and we
companies?
have a full staff, so that's not comparable.
Oh, okay.
We're talking about bringing in them to do the financial part and potentially
Mm-hmm.
going with a different audit firm, which makes sense, because we've been using them as an auditor for too long.
Okay.
And that firm would, by their own smartness, do a forensic before they came in and, took over as going on record for the audit. But to the question about Trustee Muir brought up, it's weird. We have some contracts that do go beyond the president's term, but I think it's because they're renewals, or I can't remember, so that's why I would defer to council.
Right, the agreement has a mutual termination for, I think it's 30 days or 30 or 60 days for no cause, so that's the out. And the way it was described to me, that the rate that they, or at least the rate with the increases that they guaranteed, they wanted a longer term on the front end, but they were amenable to a 30 or 60-day termination date. And absolutely, I wouldn't advise you or counsel you to enter into an agreement that did not have a termination date without, that was only for a cause that exceeded the term of the current village president.
If I recall, we originally said we wouldn't use Lauterbach and Amen because they did our audit, and that we would use a different company. We don't want to. No, the trustee, we talked
No,
about
we
it
were talking about the
on
audit. We were talking about switching the audit from them to Sikich.
Oh, well,
Yeah, we're talking about
but you're
not,
still using the same firm, though, that
no,
did
the auditors, that does, doing the financial work is not the audit.
All right.
In this case, Sikich would be checking Lauterbach. So we'd have that, that's what I'm getting at.
All right, so, Frank?
So can you clarify on the contract that they're actually doing the work? It's not just a review?
Yeah, I mean-
Because that's been brought up a couple times now, and I'd like to get clarification on that as well, because I don't want to pay $7,000 a month
Yeah.
if they're not doing the work.
That's a
so-
lot of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah.
On page 10 of their contract, the addendum, it's got a estimated internal control process review documentation, finance policy reviews, board meeting attendance, and then it's got the catch-all there that we asked them to add at one of the early discussions that, I think, on a Teams call that we brought that up, Frank, and that they've got other tasks as required by the position and agreed upon by Lauterbach and Amen and the village. So for bank recs was the example I gave Matt and Tim from the people that put the proposal together. And they said, we will train whoever you have as staff that is going to do the bank recs in Cassell 1 month, a second month, and if the training of your internal staff member doesn't stick, then we're going to ask to be able to amend the contract to make it higher, because now they're going to have a new scope of required work that they will have to execute and perform every month thereafter. So
what's
that's,
higher? What's higher? Yeah.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about the pay for Lauterbach and Amon, what's higher? Clarify that. Yeah.
That if a duty that we're going to have, either the current position that Russ is doing some work on, and he has said quite clearly, because I've said, I know, Russ, look, one of my priorities 2 weeks ago, last week, is you got to start finishing the bank recs. He said, Mark, I can't do the bank recs because I don't understand Cassell, and I don't want to keep using Tim's Excel spreadsheet to then back into the software later. I said, well, you started to do, when Tim was here, the bank recs under that format, so I don't understand why you don't want to keep doing it. He's like, well, it'll be double work, and if we get somebody in, which was Rebecca Floss, to come in and show him, Flackus. I said, I don't see that as a viable option, Russ, and we have a contract. They will help train you in Cassell to do the bank recs. And that's the scope of your duties, is to do bank recs and payroll. I didn't know his duties were going to be on, scope of him was going to go beyond that. And then the payroll, accounts payable, finance clerk type work was going to be done by existing staff. That's why that's not in this scope. So that sentence is what we discussed. If our staff that's doing the scope of the work is incapable of performing that work, they will ask for an amendment.
No, but the way I'm sorry, Mike, the way the contract's written, it talks about reviews and things like that. I think what Therese was pointing out was, are they gonna do the work? Like, are they gonna do the actual budget, just like Tim does the budget? They're doing that work, right? And they're doing a lot of what Tim used to do, Lauterbach is gonna be doing. I just wanna be clear that that's
Yeah.
what the agreement is, that's what they understand they're gonna be doing.
Yep.
And so we all understand that, yes, we are hiring a firm to do what Tim used to do.
And I took this agreement and went to Prospect Heights to the administrator that retired in October and had a discussion with him. He said, Mark, I've had him for 6 years. I've never had to trigger a change in scope because they execute the work, even though it says review and prepare interchangeably in places. I've had them for 6 years and never had an issue. I talked to the finance director that I knew in Carpentersville that went back to Evanston. He checked around, he said, Lauterbach and Amon wouldn't get repeat work in the metro Chicago area if they didn't perform. So is it ironclad to say they will execute instead of review and prepare? That's a fair point, but in practicality, they've not been fired for lack of execution of what we expect them to do. And you've got a no-cause execution of, you can terminate them if it's not to your satisfaction. So you're covered if they don't perform.
They're very expensive, that's one thing. But go ahead, Janet.
It's very,
I call the
You know,
question, it's late.
yeah.
We've been talking about this for, a long time,
All right.
multiple meetings now. This is the third or fourth meeting. Call the
right.
question.
Roll call.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Hassenberger?
Nay.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, and we're finally at 6B. Motion to approve ordinance 26-12, amending the organizational chart for the Village of Campton Hills. Motion, please.
I'll motion.
All right, moved by Kim. Do I have a
Second.
second? I'm sorry, Nick?
Second.
Okay, second by Nick. You got that?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, discussion. Mike, or Kim, I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead.
That's all right. So I sent out a memo or something earlier today, and everybody got a printout. And then I noticed that we made some other changes to the chart that was out there, which was great. Getting the residents as the top, because they are actually our bosses.
They are?
And I noticed a couple other changes there. So the only thing I kind of other things I wanted to touch upon here is that, we get down to, it's policy guidance. We've got policy guidance going all the way from the corporate authorities, all the way down to those department heads. I really think that, it's my opinion that the policy guidance from the corporate authority should probably go through the administrator, not directly to the policy heads. I think last meeting, we kind of talked about not having 7 bosses. And I know it's just policy guidance, but that's kind of almost like recommendation. But that recommendation should probably come through the administrator. Okay?
Okay.
I think that's all I have, because my biggest concern, quite literally, was the residents.
Okay, at the top. Okay, Mike, I think you were next, no? Okay. Janet, go ahead, or, yeah.
The reason that I had suggested the policy guidance lines is because we decide things, like we just decided that we're going to expect that the agendas be done the week before, right? And our clerk, works hard on that kind of stuff. But in most villages, those types of administrative tasks are actually handled in the office and not necessarily by the clerk. And so if we pass a resolution or an ordinance or something that by its nature possibly kind of binds somebody else further down the chain to do something, they're bound to that code or that ordinance or whatever, whether it goes through the administrator or not. So that's the reason that was there. But I understand your point. It's not to try and manage individual employees. It's to recognize that certain things we pass might bind everybody, like a personnel policy handbook, for example, that type of thing.
All right, Kim,
Just
go
a
ahead.
quick rebuttal. I'm not so sure it needs to actually be on the chart. As a matter of fact, one of the things I think I stated in my memo is that is pretty busy. And I think even if we weren't going to publish this to the public, even this being in a personnel manual, and you can see, even me, and you complimented me about being able to follow this. Well, this is how I managed to follow it, with colored highlighters, okay? And it was just to make sure that I got it straight. So I still think it could be simplified, and I understand what you're saying about the policy guidance, but I think it still comes through the administrator. If we're talking about an administrator running and managing the village staff, then I think we're talking about whatever we do as a corporate authority funnels down that way. Just my opinion.
I can go with that.
Anybody else? Therese, go ahead.
So, I guess I'm a little confused by this, and I think it's way too complicated, and I don't think it needs to be. I think there's too much going on. I'm not sure why we would lock ourselves into having the treasurer, the HR, and the inspections functions outsourced, because I think another board may see how expensive that is, and that may not be in the village's best interest to always have it that way. I'm also concerned about, well, first of all, the very first chart was actually drafted by Ansel Glank, so I don't think that they, did such a terrible job. I would rather almost see us starting from there and making a few changes without this. I just find these 5 different categories to be just really confusing.
Yeah,
And
hold up the one, is that the Ansel Glink one?
Yeah.
Just, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
just so everybody can see it.
Yeah, but I mean, this was drafted by attorneys who, do this for a living, and this is something that they have experience doing. If we've got some issues with it, I suppose, I think we could make some changes here. But the balance of power, if it's changing significantly, which it appears to be here, because you're taking some lines away from the village president that she had before, I'm not even sure that we can do this without a referendum. This is looking a little bit more like a manager form of government than it does as a regular trustee form of government that we currently have. And so if you take away too much of, if you do like you take the balance of power and you move it around a little bit too much, I don't believe we have the ability to do that without getting some input from the public. And that brings up another issue that the resolution, I believe, says something about, this is in the best interest of the public. We haven't asked the public. We haven't gotten any feedback from anyone. I had asked at the last meeting if we could please get some feedback from Patsy Smith, because I know she had written some memos very critical of this, and I don't know why we wouldn't welcome that information. I'm not saying we would agree with everything she says, but she did, work very hard and put this one together with the attorneys. And so I think it would be prudent of us to give her an opportunity to tell us what it is that she doesn't like. She knows more about this village than almost any one of us. And I had asked that last time. She's out of the country. Otherwise, she could have been here. But I don't know why we couldn't get her input. She's been emailing all of us and trying to get her word out there. And I don't know if anyone, I don't know why we should be afraid of what she has to say here. If we don't like it, we just don't listen to it. But I would like to hear what she has to say.
Go ahead.
Okay, so, the one that trustee Burson had the clerk print up for us today does have the change where the appointment is by the president for all these. If you look at the new lines, the appointment and removals is all by appointment by the president with the consent, and this is for not only the PCC, but the committees as well, as well as these other departments that are by appointment, including the administrator, with the consent of the board. So this is actually back to where we've been.
There's no appointment by the president of the administrator with consent of the board. It's appointment by the corporate authorities. That's what our code says, and that's where we're still at.
Okay.
Mike, go ahead.
Where I think we're mixing a couple things here, that I'm just looking at the samples that trustee Muir provided, and then I go back to my old standby. I'm looking at Clarendon Hills right now, which is one of the places that's nearly the same size as us, if you count the fact that they have internal public works and we contract, and they have a fire department, but it consists of one chief. It's all POC. So, but if I look at we've got the two things I think that this is doing, and I think that makes it cluttered by trying to do all at the same time, is what I would call the public-facing thing, and that just basically shows, the what we would just call the flow chart or the standard org chart supervision. Well, it's not necessarily, I don't know if it's necessarily a direct supervision. Well, yeah, I guess maybe it's more direct supervision, as opposed to, because we got policy mixed in here also, and then we've got appointment authority mixed in here also. I think we maybe should make this almost three things. The one that manage is similar to the examples we have, which is what folks that are just kind of sort of barely interested in what's going on to look at the website, and then, okay, those are all the departments, blah, 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 and those are the committees. And then I think there's the one that would be the internal that the administrator would use, that the department head would use, the contractors would use to see where they fall in that, and that's the who's my boss thing, and that is, and I love the notes. The notes are great. I think the notes probably need to go with each of these separate subcharts, and then the last one would actually be we should have, to what you, trustee Burson was just indicating, is kind of the policy, message of the organization, kind of the culture of the organization, I think would be that one too. And then that almost is not entirely circular, but to some extent, it should be, because you should expect in the organizational culture to have some feedback right back, looping back in. And so I think that would be a third one. And then, and my joke that I just mentioned earlier is, you know, being an old AutoCAD user person, you turn on and off layers, right? It looks good, turns off. That's probably hard in something like this, but, you know, something you can break it into 3 overlays. I mean, I think it's a good start. I think we should tweak it a little bit and readdress, or come back to it.
Okay, anybody else on that side? All right, Janet?
I think those are great suggestions. And what I think we could get to dawn on this is if we simplify, so without the layers, I can make 3 copies of this and I can just knock out the stuff that we don't want on the individual ones, right? So one of these charts should be just supervision only, traditional org chart, right? And then we can have a second one that only deals with the appointment, confirmation, and restore issues. And then, to trustee Millet's point, if we want, we can have a third one that deals with these kind of softer issues. And to the extent that we still feel like we maybe have too many lines, maybe words can do the job of some of those lines. But I think that if we started with this chart and we pulled out of this only the supervisory lines as the public-facing aspect that trustee Millet was talking about, and then made a second one that it contains only the appointments and the confirmation, restore functions of the board, then I think it will be a lot easier to follow. Those 2 are really going to be your meat, you know, in all of this.
So do we want to table this till next meeting? Because we're not going to vote on what we can't see. All right, do I have a table?
I'll
Yes?
table it.
Okay.
I'll motion to
Janet?
table.
All right,
I'll second.
all right, second by Kim. Do a roll call.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Heffelberger?
Aye.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Good, motion passes, and we're done. Motion to adjourn.
Motion, so moved.
Kim? I'm sorry.
Oh, I better say it
We
first.
pulled C?
Oh, yeah.
We've
he's
already
not
pulled it.
ready.
Yeah, okay, I don't remember
Yeah.
hearing that, so,
He's
okay.
not ready to sign.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
I just didn't hear that we pulled it.
No, we don't.
No, we did all that.
Will the closed session?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you do. Right there.
Or do you want to move them to next meeting?
Make that, no.
If they're ready to approve them now, we could approve them
Okay.
now.
All right,
I think we have to.
okay.
Yeah, I'll move to approve resolution 2605.
Okay, second?
Second.
Second by Frank. Okay, roll call.
Trustee Millet?
Aye.
Trustee Benetti?
Aye.
Trustee Boatner?
Aye.
Trustee Burson?
Aye.
Trustee Heffelberger?
Aye.
Trustee Muir?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes, and motion to adjourn. All right, Frank?
Second.
Everybody say aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, thank you. It's a good meeting. It's a long meeting.
I didn't expect it to be that long at all.
Think so?